meeting of the North Carolina Driver Education Advisory Committee. This committee advises and recommends to the State Board of Education how to implement the North Carolina Driver Education Strategic Plan and other issues related to driver education and traffic safety. I am Devin Tanner, the chairman of the North Carolina Driver Education Advisory Committee, and I call this meeting to order. If at any time during this meeting you have comments, please speak into your computer microphone so it can be recorded. If you are an online listener and have questions, wait to be recognized before speaking. If you are currently not muted, please go ahead and mute yourself. Our agenda and materials are available online through the DPI website at www.dpi.nc.gov on the driver education section page. The meeting is also audio streamed through a link located at the bottom of the Driver Education Advisory Committee page. I'm now going to read the ethics statement that is required of us. Committee members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this committee. Do any of the committee members of the committee know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. Okay, thank you. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. At this time now, I would like to have, we're going to go ahead and announce a roll call. So if I could have Cindy Taylor come on and go ahead and do roll call.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, Devin Tanner.
Present.
Kathy Short.
Present.
Dr. Braden Simmons. Jeff Moore. Carol Hutchins. Sarah Martin. Dr. Cheryl Leonard. Stephen Lowry. Paul DeLuey. Michael Newsom. Dr. Flood.
Present. Debbie, I'm on it.
Captain Troy Pope.
Here, ma'am.
Thomas Young.
Here.
Martin Rickman.
Here.
Ventress Chestnut.
Present.
Marvin Smith. Natalie O'Brien. Doug Ellis.
Present.
Wyatt Smith.
Present.
Carl Logan.
Present.
Tanya Easterwood. Reggie Fleiss.
Present. Here I am.
Amelia Royster Davis. All right, that's it, Mr. Tanner. Thank you.
Okay, Cindy. Go ahead, Carl.
They have a quorum, Cindy.
We do have a quorum?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Those of you who are on the committee should have received via email an agenda for today's meeting. Many members, you had an opportunity to review that proposed agenda for today. Do we have a motion to approve this agenda for the meeting today?
Motion approved.
Okay, can you state your name?
Yes, this is Cheryl Leonard.
Cheryl Leonard.
Brent, Devin, Carl here.
Go ahead.
There's a part of the DPI update that deals with the COVID-19 program adjustments.
Okay.
If I could defer that part of our DPI update to that program adjustment part.
Fine. So, does your motion still stand then?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
So moved,
Doug Eller?
correct.
Thank you very much. Okay. You also should have received the minutes from the last meetings. That was on February the 18th, 2020, and we have been, they've been prepared and made available to you. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes? State your name, please.
Mike Newsom?
Okay, Mike Newsom with the first. And do I have a second?
Brandon Simmons, second.
Brandon Simmons second. Any discussion? Okay. And then everyone, we failed to do this with the agenda. We can go back if we need to, Carl. But everyone who is in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Perfect. All right. At this time, Carl Logan, are you prepared to go ahead and give us your NCVPI update?
Yes. In echoing Devin, we thank you all for your being here today, and we trust that all of you and your families are safe and sound from this terrible pandemic that our nation and our world is experiencing right now. And we expect we thank you for your diligence and working here and attending this meeting. As you can imagine, we've been quite busy over the last few months. I'm sure that everybody else has been, because everybody's world is kind of turned upside down at the moment. At any rate, we'll move forward with a few of the items and things that we have been working on and been involved in. On May the 6th, we were invited to present to the State Board of Education, and which went quite well. It was well received, and as well, we got an invitation to come back and share the update of our new digitized curriculum that we've been creating for the past several months. We shared with them a number of items, including taking them back to the beginning of where this restructuring process started. Obviously, you all have been involved in this along the way, but we had a chance to go back and share with them the history of driver education all the way back to its inception almost 100 years ago, and in this state where we actually had the curriculum that was approved by the State Board of Education, or required by the State Board of Education, in 1958, the year I was born. And no comments, please. And then on with the Federal Highway Safety Act of 1966 that required 4 E's, and where education was heavily involved in that program and with the federal government. And then on up forward, where the program was taken out of the school day in 1992, and then fast forwarded all the way up to 2010, where we had the OSBM study, and then we had the strategic plan and the assessment in 2015, and also with the General Assembly requirement of the survey, the 4-year survey that we completed, and which produced a report, and then on with the national standards. And that the program has been going through a massive restructuring process, and we're trying to clear up the fact that this is not, the program was not in such bad shape that it needed an assessment done by the federal government. The Department of Public Instruction requested an assessment by its peers, and it was not designed to show that how bad the program was. It was not designed to show how great the program was. It was designed to give us an outside look on how the program is operating and to recommend some areas that we could focus on, which it has done. And when we combined all of those items, then we were able to align and make a good roadmap. And so they understood that. And at the bottom of that slide, you'll see that obviously our division of our Driver Ed Advisory Committee uses this also in the basic or the foundations, administration of the Driver Ed Advisory Committee. So they were quite impressed with the things that were going on, to a point where they did invite us back to show the curriculum when it's projected to be done in the next few weeks. Understand that I got in trouble for saying it was going to be done by the end of the month, but we do expect it to be done somewhere in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I suppose, Amelia, if you don't get mad at me for saying that. I will defer the remaining parts of this conversation toward the COVID-19 piece. We've also had an opportunity to have a webinar. We had 3 sessions last week, Monday, Tuesday. We had over 120 participants in that webinar. We invited the contractors and the coordinators for the programs. We discussed the state that we're in regarding the COVID-19 shutdown. And I will come back to much of this in a few minutes, but we did discuss some recommendations that were graciously provided to us by your chair, Devin Tanner, with Wake County, who has been doing some preliminary planning on restarting the program when we get that nod. Also with Thomas Young, who of McDowell County, that's how we say it in McDowell County, is that we will, he provided an instructor checklist. Those were in draft form. We will send those out when we get more information from the emergency response teams and what else needs to be included in that. We have had a number of questions regarding, should we be purchasing safety items anticipating the fact that we will be anticipating that we'll be reopening the program prior to the end of the budget year, because we are not able to roll over or carry forward funding from this school year, this fiscal year. So if you are still able to purchase any items, that is your discretion on what you may be needing. You all can read as well as I can, but I'm not in a position to send out any recommendations as of yet. So you can do some forward thinking if you would like to be able to do that. We also posed 16 poll questions, it's really 15 poll questions, and the consensus was that that we focus on the behind the wheel part because there was such a backlog of students. Okay. So we'll discuss those here in just a few minutes. And I believe, let's see, we also discussed a systematic restart plan, and we'll cover that into here in just a few minutes as well. So with that, I will defer back to the chair. Mr. Tanner?
How about I unmute myself, that would help. Thank you, Mr. Logan. Don't go too far. At this time, there are no subcommittee or old business updates today. And so Carl Logan is going to provide updates on our new business, including COVID-19 related information.
Okay, so as we were just discussing here, that we are in a situation where the schools and school-related activities are still shut down. We have, from that meeting, we submitted our systematic restart plan to the decision makers, and along with recommendations that to show that we are doing some forward thinking and awaiting the announcement. The situation is that driver education, classroom and behind the wheel, does not lend itself too well to adhering to social distancing. So we just don't know when that would be lifted. However, if you all agree that there has been a number of reopening of businesses that could provide an argument that driver education should be given the allowance also to continue. So we're kind of in a spot where we're just hurry up and waiting, but we're preparing. We are a safety industry. We teach risk assessment and risk management in our classrooms, and when we if we were to start back before it is safe for everyone, the teacher and the students involved, we could be sending the wrong message. So I could actually argue both sides of this. However, we're going to err on the side of safety. So that's kind of the state of where we are at the moment. As I just mentioned a few minutes ago, is that we had over 120 people on the webinar last week, and we discussed a systematic restart plan. And this has been requested by members of the General Assembly. It was requested by the governor level and the HHS. What kind of plans do we have regarding the restart of the program? And is there a focus on the behind the wheel piece? And I could say with affirmatively that we had already pre-planned, and we had touched base with all of the coordinators who participated on the call, and that we had gotten feedback, and that we had made this tentative plan, and awaiting their decision. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. We were the State Board of Education legislative liaison, Freebird McKinney, spoke to us briefly and gave us his update on where he was with communicating with the emergency response teams and the governor's office. So we are in the mix. We are on the radar, and just as soon as we hear something, then we will report back to you all. And even if it comes at 11 o'clock at night, I will send something out to let you all know that we have got the thumbs up and ready to roll. Pardon the pun. But this systematic restart, and this was voted on by the attendees of the webinar, that they felt like that the majority of the people, 60+%, agreed that we should focus on the backlog. If you can consider where we are at the state level, if you consider 1/12 of the students taking the program each month, and we know that doesn't work like that, that we would be 4,000 to 5,000 kids waiting for behind the wheel. We had variances where some people had 1 to 2 weeks of waiting, and we had some that were up as high as 15 weeks behind. So that would be your call. However, we have told the powers that be that we would focus on the backlog, because that's where the majority of our parental conversations or parental phone calls have come from. So we're awaiting the reopening or be included in the reopening plan of the governor. And we will adhere to any HHS or any other safety requirements. And we would obviously encourage you all to increase those, but you would not be able to decrease those safety requirements. In regards to communications, most importantly is that we have to start this, we have to make sure that the Division of Motor Vehicles is involved in the communications. The driver license offices, and we do have the chief driver license person here on the committee, Michael Newsom. And Michael, if you would like to share anything with us, you can unmute yourself. But the license agencies have been working with a reduced number of offices open and a reduced number of services. Michael, do you have any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. As Carl stated, we are really impacted by the entire COVID-19 situation in our offices. In that safety, as Carl mentioned. I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Can you hear me, Carl?
Michael, we lost you.
No, I can hear you.
This is Devin Tanner, and I can hear.
Okay. So, we've really been impacted, and just some examples are first and foremost just trying to honor safety. We've instilled several measures at each of the offices that include social distancing, marking floors, face masks for employees, taking daily temperature of employees. And so right now, I think we're doing pretty well. We're not servicing as many customers as we would normally service by going with appointment only, which is a service that we provide now. Appointment only in every open location. Today we have about 51 offices, 51 offices of 115 offices currently open. And so as you're seeing in the districts too, we get a lot of concerns, especially from parents, in that we're not conducting road tests. And so that's the biggest, I would say, issue that's ongoing right now that's not resolved. Right now, we don't have a plan to return to conducting road tests until we can assure optimal safety. We are still conducting the CDL commercial road testing. And so there's a question, if you're doing it for the CDL drivers, why aren't you doing it for the students? Well, based on the safety risk assessment, we're trying to minimize the risk level. And so, of course, the demand for teen drivers are exceeding, as compared to the commercial drivers. So by not conducting the teen drivers, that kind of lowers the risk, not only for the public, but for our examiners and employees as well. So that's where we are right now. Right now, we are discussing a phased plan to open additional offices going forward on into the governor's phase 3 plans, but we're trying to mirror the efforts of the governor in his planning with returning full operations in a phase plan.
Thank you, Michael. I'm sorry, I missed almost everything you said. Somehow or another, I clicked off my speaker. So was it because I didn't want to hear you? But anyway, I have been keeping in touch with Michael, and I do appreciate the collaboration that we have had here. Also, with traffic safety, obviously, this is an integrated process between the driver education program here in the public schools and school bus and traffic safety, as they play an integral part of the classroom as far as being able to come in and doing any kind of safety programs, or they may be come in to check eyes. We do have the manager for school bus and traffic safety, Paul Deloy, on here. Paul, do you have any comments you would like to share with us regarding school bus and traffic safety at the moment? I don't see Paul on here at the moment, so we'll move forward. But there is a need for a coordinated effort between DMV and DPI on this potential restart, as it's not a simple process. We would also encourage you all to communicate with your school administrations, because a lot of them have not had access to the buildings, and obviously the step before getting to the driver license office would require the students to go to the main offices and get a driver eligibility certificate. We have had significant discussions regarding the driver eligibility certificates. We're not ready to announce anything yet. However, we do know that some districts in Wake County, you may want to expand on this, Devin, is that you all have created a process to kind of help to expedite that moving forward. So that is a focus that we are going to try to work with the driver license office to see if we can eliminate some of the administrative issues that we do have going on. Mike, do you have any other comments regarding those?
Not at this time, unless anyone has any particular questions on, where we are. I'll
Okay.
return to what we call normal operations.
Okay. All right.
Carl Marvin Smith.
Yes.
I would like to relay a situation. We have a member on here, Wyatt Smith, who's our student representative.
Yes.
He's completed everything, needed a road test. He was allowed to go online and make an appointment for a road test in Lexington, North Carolina. And when they arrived there for the appointment that was made, he was chastised by the examiner there for even showing up that they were not doing any road tests. Just wanted to relay that to you, that they are allowed to make appointments for a road test and then get there and show up, and they're told they can't do it. This is something that's happening online.
Carl, if I could address that.
Yes.
So when we went to the online appointment system, at the beginning of this entire pandemic situation, we were in a pilot phase for 5 offices. So the program was actually preliminary. And so because of the pandemic, we kind of rushed to fill the appointment system across all of the offices that were currently open. So unfortunately, the kinks weren't worked out as we didn't get the opportunity for the full pilot phase of it. And so we encountered problems as we went through it, one of which is we discovered once a mass cancellation goes out in that system, customers still receive the text confirming appointments, which is a complete conflict. So since this time, we first noted that we have made updates to the site. If you go to the site today, regardless of what the system allows you to do, you see the disclaimer that we're not conducting road tests, and we actually don't, show up to an office, even if you're allowed to make that appointment. We've also removed the button that allows a team driver to schedule a level 2 issuance, which is a road test. So we've made some updates to the system as a result of the discrepancies, but I do apologize to the student on his encounter. And for those type situations where you encounter that, just bring it back up through, I say myself, the chief, or any way that you can get in contact with me through contact us online at the DMV site, whatever the case may be. And we'll work those individually based on this miscommunication. But again, that was entirely our fault as we rushed, a system in pilot phase to try to accommodate the appointment only and just accommodate services in general consistent with this crisis.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Logan, Connie Sessions.
Yes.
We're getting a lot of calls from students who are currently issued and have in their possession a driving eligibility certificate, but it is my understanding that the General Assembly extended that 30-day window. Does DMV is DMV on board with that?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, all right. And that's the advice we've been giving students, is that the DMV has extended that 30-day window until further notice, and they should take that document that they have in their hands that would normally have been expired, take it on with their other paperwork, and they should be good.
Mike, excuse me for not being too up to date on the extension. That extension, it was for driver eligibility certificates that were issued during a certain period of time till the end of a certain period of time, is it? Or is it indefinite?
That is correct, Carl. I don't have those dates in front of me, but there were, I think it's like a 90-day period. If your original certificate fell within that date, that they would be extended to a certain date. But again, I can follow up on that and send it to you once I bring that documentations up.
All right, thanks. The next part of the systematic restart would be is that we're sure that some of the or the teaching staff, especially those behind the wheel, would have to undergo some specific training as far as what they would need to how to prepare their vehicles, the checklist that we just mentioned, those types of items, and that we would expect that you all would have some type of training for the teachers in the class, in the behind the wheel and the classroom when and if that comes about. Also, obviously, you know that your communication with parents, we don't know at this point. However, we have heard of situations where the most effective safety action that we could do would be checking the temperature of a student getting in the vehicle. That we have seen the non-invasive type thermometer readings where they do it by infrared, and you would just just shine on the student's forehead or whatever, and you could detect the temperature. That again would be something of your call on purchasing any of those items. They are, and obviously in this situation, acceptable expenses for the program, being that it's a safety item. So that it has also been mentioned of creating a release of some type for the parent and student to allow the student into this situation where they're going to be in close quarters for an extended period of time. The last I heard from the HHS was that if you're sitting for more than 10 minutes in one place, that your chances of being in contact or chances of infection go up quite a bit. And as you know, we're in a situation where our students being in the vehicle with a teacher and another student for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, depending on the length of time doing that. Okay. All right. Moving forward, that might be my last slide on that particular one. Oops. I see that Susan has made a drawing on the page. Turn that off. Going backward here just a second, let me go back to my slide here. On March the 27th of this year, the State Board of Education approved recommendations for remote learning. Also, the Commission of Motor Vehicles has done the same thing to increase the opportunities for students taking the classroom phase of the program. However, the Division of Motor Vehicles allows students or teachers to conduct classrooms in a virtual environment. This requires some methods to where they must be visible, I believe, and there's some other criteria, but there is not a situation where the student is left to move forward in the program by themselves. So that the teacher must be able to, I think, ensure that the student is on the other end of that. In regards to the public school in-house programs, as I stated before, the March 27th State Board of Education approved recommendations. These are ongoing until the crisis is over. We have no idea how long either one of these these allowances are going to be able to be used. However, being that we have created a curriculum that has the flexibility of districts and teachers presenting the material in a variety of different methods, we were going to go to the State Board of Education in July and request this very same thing. Okay. So we're in a spot right now where we are going to sit on this for a moment and just wait until we move forward a little further, and then we'll just see where we need to go with this. However, it is something that we need to take in consideration, and it was mentioned from the advisory board member that is something that we would need to discuss, because it is currently in normal times, it is a conflict, or there are conflicts. So right now, you see in the in-house programs and the LEAs who contract, we do have the flexibility provision in place. When we are able to restart the behind the wheel, I'm sorry, when regarding the classes at the moment, we do have the flexibility of offering the classroom phase by statute, or excuse me, by DMV allowances, also with State Board of Education. Even though it would be a recommendation to stay with the focus on the behind the wheel first. There will be some discussions on synchronous remote classes, and then obviously the DMV allowance is for the virtual class size, or excuse me, the virtual classes. There is also considerations on the number of students that you would be able to teach in a remote synchronous class. So there are a number of items that we need to discuss, or that is recommended to discuss among this committee. And at that, Devin, I would throw it back open to you to open the floor for any type of discussion on this.
Okay, so I will do exactly that. Is there anybody within the body of the meeting at this time that would like to discuss any of the points that have just been made? Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, if there are none, Carl, thank you very much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. Just like everybody else, my main concern is when and how we can get our students back into our program and back out onto the road, so that we can teach, the things that we teach kids to be safe, kids to stay alive. What we do is very, very important. I know that those that work with us at DPI, as well as those that are involved with us at the legislative level, also share that sentiment. So keep up what you're doing. Keep doing the best that you guys can. I know at this point there's a lot of unanswered questions, even for myself, with regard to my LEA in Wake County. But the best thing we can do is to prepare so that when we do get a green light and when it is safe, we're ready to get things rolling again. So I appreciate everything everybody is doing.
Devin.
Yes, Carl.
Before we leave, Paul is on the line, and that if Paul, you could, of course, it's your call, is to allow him to unmute and make any comments regarding school bus and traffic safety and any of the performance.
Mr. DeLuey, would you unmute yourself? And Carl, would you please frame your question once again that you had before to Paul?
I heard it, Devin. I can respond to it because I heard it earlier. I was trying to talk, but I don't know why nobody heard me.
Oh, sorry about that, Paul.
Not a problem. But yeah, school bus is currently testing and training CDL drivers for school bus. We have sent out notices to the commercial schools to allow them to do a virtual real-time classroom portion so they can continue to operate doing that. We've been receiving complaints for communication from commercial schools asking if they can take people out and drive, and we're like, you need to verify whether you can handle taking someone out to drive under the current restrictions, since it would be a violation of the state of emergency and the governor's guidance. But the commercial schools are able to continue to do a classroom portion due to the letter signed by the commissioner. So we're trying to do the best we can and continue to move on under this new world that we're working in.
Paul, there's a number of people who have reached out to me and asking about when we do get the okay to start the driving phase again, that eye checks. Would that be up to your local DEPS to decide or determine how they're going to do eye checks? Would they do them individually, or would they do them in a position where they have some kind of thing where you have a drive up and get out, do an eye check, get an 800 form signed, those kind of things?
Yeah, what we've been doing at present, matter of fact, we've done a test of it in Johnson County, and we're working on doing a test of another format here in Wake County, where we're going to set up in either a school parking lot or a large area and do like they're doing with the COVID-19 testing. Basically, the person would drive up with the passenger side of the vehicle towards a tent, step out, put their head up against the eye machine while the DEPS is at the full extension of their of the cable of the machine, and do the eye checks that way, checking off the 800 and proceeding on. And then we're also doing with these only three to five students in the classroom, depending on the classroom, and doing eye checks one by one. Once again, maintaining social distancing.
Thanks, Paul. It's you.
What's that?
Devin, you got it again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. And we are working a plan, as Paul had mentioned, here in Wake County, exactly what he was saying. And I actually have a meeting about that after this meeting with one of my instructors who's in touch with one of your people here in Wake County. So I appreciate the efforts that you're making to help us out with the eye checks. If there are no other comments, we have no other business in this meeting. Carl, is there anything else that you have before we need to go ahead and start closing?
Mr. Logan.
Go ahead.
It's Thomas Young from McDowell County. One question I do have is I understand that we need to focus on the behind the wheel to get those kids through, but at some point we're going to start causing a backlog of students not getting into the classroom, and thus, you know, versus them being only 6 hours from finishing driver's ed, they're going to be 36 hours from finishing driver's ed. How long do you anticipate that we focus on the behind the wheel going into the summer before, you know, we start backlogging kids of the classroom portion, especially since, you know, you're going to have the upcoming freshmen supposedly supposed to start taking the classes this summer?
In essence, the consensus was that we would focus on the backlog of behind the wheel students. However, since the State Board of Education has made the allowance for us to teach virtually, then that is something that your district could move forward with. And because we've seen that some districts said that they were 1 to 2 weeks behind, then obviously they would be in a state of waiting for the for the entire program to open up again. The thing that we are not sure of is if we will ever return to a norm of having access to the schools. I understand that some districts already know that they will not have access to the schools in June or July. So therefore, a alternative plan on how to offer the classroom needed to be created. And so the state board has given us that option, and so the district would make that decision as to when they would begin to do that. However, I would caution you to this, is that we are a safety industry. We do not want to, quote unquote, water down the program just to click a box and say that we provided a classroom, and merely putting a curriculum or putting some questions or anything, information online does not make it a program. Which it's taken us with a curriculum specialist, 2, 3, that in creating a curriculum, and it's taken us over almost a year. So we do have a curriculum that will be coming out sometime this summer, and that you all would have access, excuse me, either this fall probably, is that you would have access to it. However, we're not saying that you cannot provide any kind of classroom instruction, being that the State Board of Education hasn't made that allowance.
Okay, thank you.
One additional thing, Devin, is that over the next few weeks, I can imagine that things are going to be kind of unpredictable, and the DEAC, the committee, might need to think about having some emergency meetings, even if it might only be for 15 minutes. Is that I would encourage the chair to let the committee know that we could be calling some emergency meetings and to go into session and discuss something, vote, and do whatever necessary administrative functions that we do need to do.
I agree that based on any new information or data that comes out, we may need to do that. And I will be very closely in touch with our co-chair, Kathy Short, and you, Mr. Logan, as new details come and arise. We definitely do have the option of meeting virtually, even for a short time. So that helps, even though we're spread out statewide. So I appreciate that comment. I do also want to address the backlog question as well. And I'm coming at this not just as the chairman of DEAC, but as the coordinator for driver's ed for Wake County. And I know Connie Sessoms over there in Mecklenburg is having the same thought process. Whether we, there's going to be a backlog either way now. I don't necessarily foresee a 14-and-a-half-year-old being able to take the program here in Wake County, because there's such a backlog of kids now waiting for the classroom, even with this month, 2 months off, that regardless of whether we start behind the wheel early or start classroom before behind the wheel, there's going to be a backlog no matter what of some sort. And I'm sure that the commissioner, the DMV, he's going to also have a backlog once those offices open. So there are going to be backlogs all around, and I'm preparing for for that reality. And I think the best thing that we can do is get with our LEAs, our organizations, our driving schools, and plan for how to best deal with these backlogs moving forward. So, but I appreciate the comments, and that's something we definitely need to kind of have in the forefront of our minds moving forward, how that all is going to look with classroom behind the wheel, whether we start behind the wheel early or we do classrooms or not. I can tell you right now in Wake County, and I believe also in Mecklenburg County, Connie, if I'm wrong, you can let me know, we are starting virtual online classes for kids who are already scheduled for April classes that didn't start. And those kids are starting here, if not this week, next week, to get those classes through. that is going to create a backlog of a little bit for us because we have not yet started behind the wheel, obviously. But, you know, it's a matter now of we have more kids who need driver ed than we have seats for those kids for the, you know, for the next year. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Carl, thank you very much for your presentations, for the information. And I just want to also thank the committee members, advisors, and staff for your participation and the discussion. I want to remind committee members that our next quarterly meeting is currently scheduled for the State Board of Education meeting room. That's currently where it's scheduled, August 18th, 2020. Now, obviously things can change with regard to meeting together, but currently it is scheduled to be at the State Board of Education meeting room on August 18th, 2020. And that meeting will be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If we do switch to a virtual mode like we are right now, we will certainly give people all the notice that they need. So at this point, we've completed the meeting, and unless there's any additional business at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn the meeting. Motion made.
Second.
Cheryl.
Okay, Cheryl first, and Marty, was that you? Second?
Second, Mark Rickman, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Everybody who's in agreement to adjourn the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Everybody be safe. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for being here, guys. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.